Great. We're welcoming all you guys. It's wonderful to have you here. I see Annette and Cecil and Shonda, Melissa, Carla, Amanda, Amy. You guys are from all over. What I'd like you to do is move your mouse, if you would, please, and go to the bottom of the screen. You're going to see a green share button. Please go to the left and you're going to see a chat box. I'd love you to put in your name, where you're from. We love to know where people are coming in from. We've got about 275 people registered for this webinar. We're expecting at least 80 to show up. Kind of fun because we do record this and we also offer it as a podcast. I'm Sarah Cooperman and I'm the CEO of SCW. And I love doing these webinars. This saved my life during the pandemic. I don't know how you guys feel, but we've just kept it up because it's just fascinating. We have people from Albany, New York, from Brooksville, Florida, Pennsylvania, Tahoe, California, New Hampshire, Dallas, New Mexico, Maryland, Southern California, Indiana, San Francisco, Connecticut, Chicago burbs. Of course, we've got to have someone from the Chicago burbs. That's where I live. So we've got to love it. All right. I love the webinars. What we're going to talk about tonight is strength training for active agers. And we've got some great people with us. We're going to muscle mass decreases by around 5% per decade starting at the age of 30. It's going to happen no matter what. So what we want to look at is, as this decline gets even higher after the age of 60, what are we going to do? The loss of muscle mass and strength is a fundamental cause of disabilities in our older adults. And we're going to look at how to properly strength train, of course, in 45 minutes, our active aging clientele and help slow this decrease in muscle loss. We've got Ann Gilbert with us. Ann is one of the industry's premier educators on exercise and aging. She's the owner-operator of Shapes Fitness for Women, specializing, of course, in women, but also she has a huge active aging clientele, very strong in aqua, very strong in strength training, chair workouts, etc. She was the choreographer and the co-creator for 4 years of the Water in Motion Platinum program, which was water and active aging. And then she's also the recent creator of the wonderful new program called SEAT, Supported Exercise for Ageless Training. It's Supported Exercise for Ageless Training, SEAT, not seated exercise. So this is pretty interesting. And she's just been wonderful to present at countless conventions, frankly, across the world. We've got Christine Conti with us, who has a master's in education. She is an arthritis and orthopedic fitness specialist. She is a creator and author of the Chronic Disease Specialist certification through SCW. She has 20 years in the medical fitness industry working with fitness, and she serves on the MedFit Network Educational Advisory Board. She's created fall-proof fall prevention programs, Let's Face It programs, and she recently authored Split Second Courage, which is a wonderful book, and it was released in January of 2022. And then we have Aaron Askels. I can never pronounce it. You're going to have to help me with this. We have Aaron, okay? He's fabulous. He's a PhD. We actually got connected with Aaron over the pandemic. I always say there's a silver lining everywhere. And he's the director of exercise and science and an assistant professor at Crown College. He is a doctor. He has his PhD. His PhD is in health and human performance. And he focuses right now on active aging. He's presented virtually and live at the ICAA conference for SCW on our active aging conference. He's also on the certification committee for the American College of Sports Medicine. He's an incredible academic, but he's also for 13 years was the director of the fitness centers for Walker Methodist in Minneapolis. He provided and oversight the program for 11 fitness centers, 11 dedicated to training older adults. So we've got all these experts. I'm like taking a deep breath. I always give myself 5 minutes to introduce everything, and I made it. So I'm very excited. We're diving in. We got 40 minutes here. We're going to dive in. What are some of the go-to exercises for your active agers? And I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think the important thing is that anything we do has to transfer to what they want to do, right? So what we do is what they can do. And I think we talked about it before we started. One of the primary exercises is sit to stand, and making sure that people know how to be aware of their core stabilizers, have great postural alignment, and get to the point where they feel comfortable standing up out of a chair and losing that relationship that they have with poor posture against the back of the chair. Sit to stand is my go-to.
Okay, there you go. All right, Christine.
We got to walk. That's it. Period. The end. Once, Ann told us we got to get up, right? Our sit to stand. And now we have to walk. And it's movement matters. So, getting up is going to help with our independence, and walking is single leg weight bearing exercise, which really talks about coordination and balance and the strength and the ankle mobility to move. And that's, I think, part of the groundwork of what we should be going to.
Right. Activities of daily living. You got to live. You got to be able to go to the bathroom. That's why we need the sit to stand. And you got to be able to move and at least answer the front door when Grubhub arrives. Okay, that's there. I've shared too much. Aaron, what do you think are some of the go-to exercises for active aging clients?
Yeah, and I think for me and for the fitness centers that we trained in, something we really focused on was power, and moving the weight, even body weight, or using a traditional machine as quickly as possible. A lot of times people think about strength and losses in strength in the active ager. However, they also lose muscular power, so the ability to move that weight quickly as they age as well. And some of that really transfers to those activities of daily living. So whether we're using body weight or whether we're using a machine, we really try to push people to move that weight as quickly as possible. Not every time, not every session, but certainly working power type exercises and even plyometrics based exercises into our workouts.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me. We had, all of us were lucky enough to be able to connect before the webinar comes on. And Aaron, you had mentioned about the power training. Could you elaborate on that? Because like you said before, whenever I think of plyometric training or power training, I think of an athlete. And I don't think of a 72-year-old, woman who's babysitting her grandchildren.
Yeah, and so I think we really have to think about it from the mechanical principles surrounding plyometric exercise. And when we think about power or plyometric type exercises, I often say they're not just for your athletes, but really anybody, including our older adults too. We have to think about it from what we call the stretch shortening cycle. And that's the muscular properties associated with some of those power type movements, including plyometrics. So oftentimes we can take a plyometric exercise that you might see a college or professional athlete use and modify it some for an older adult, depending on their capabilities or their ability level to do that. Keeping safety in mind at all times. Like I said, a lot of times we can modify some of those and we still get that plyometric or stretch shortening cycle response from that exercise. I've actually given a presentation a few different times, including for the Active Aging Summit with SCW on plyometric exercise. And there I demonstrate how can we do lower body plyometric exercise, upper body plyometric exercise, and even the challenge of core or midsection plyometric exercise as well. So it's definitely doable. It's definitely safe. It takes some progression to get to, but that's the challenge for a lot of our active agers is how do we get them moving quickly in a safe manner?
Yeah, because if there's a grandchild just about to dart into the street, you got to grab somebody. If a kid is just about to fall and slip off the the changing table, you got to grab it. I do a workshop on strength training for longevity, vitality, and longevity. And we work with bands because it's so versatile and anybody can work at any level. and we'll do rapid movement patterns because it's that fast twitch muscle fibers that tend to atrophy and that we lose the quickest. We do have, and Erin, my hope is that you are on it. We do have our Active Aging Summit. We've actually set the date. I think Carter, who is kind enough to who's kind enough to run this webinar this evening. We were chatting about this. We're looking, Carter, what was that? March 10th, I think we were looking at it. In mid-March, we're going to be doing it again this year. So Erin, I'd love to see that again because it is so valuable. And when you're talking about some of these power moves, the lifting moves, are there any exercises that you have specifically included, or are there any exercises that maybe you've excluded?
Interesting. And I think that what Erin said is so important for us to understand. We need that speed, power, balance, and agility and every day. So I want to thank him for bringing that up. I try to avoid too much pushing, don't you think? Because we live in that forward flex, or so many of my clients do. Less track work, less pec work, and a lot more pulling, right? Postural alignment movement, lots of rotation in the thoracic spine. And I think that also teaches my clients and my students in small group. I just got back from running from the club from a small group tonight. It teaches them body awareness so that when they do get up and move, and when they do their plyometrics or their speed, power, balance, they're aware of where they are in space. So I love core strengthening, but I don't like as much pushing as I do pulling.
I have to agree with you. We were just, again, we were chatting about this, and Abby Ebel does this wonderful workshop called Arm Candy, which I love. I'm not sure if I just love the candy part, but it's phenomenal. And we were chatting about it. I can't stand this exercise. You know, when you think, oh, I'm stretching my deltoid. No, I mean, like, why are you tightening your pecs even further? Why are you stretching the traps, stretching the deltoid? You're like this anyway. I agree with you, Anne. I want to feel like I'm doing the pulling. I want to work my posterior chain because that's so important. Christine, you are this chronic disease specialist, okay? And a lot of these people don't even know that they have these chronic diseases that start, you know, the arthritis, et cetera, that start creeping up. What are some of the exercises that you specifically include? And then I'll hit you up for the exclusions.
Okay. Including is any exercise that you can validate to me that mimics everyday life. If you cannot give me a good explanation of why you are doing that exercise and how it relates to getting in a car, and putting on a seatbelt, reaching, using transverse abdominal movements, you know, picking up a grandchild or a child or a plate and putting it in the dishwasher or washing machine, and, you know, and even using your hands to navigate utensils. I don't see a purpose unless you are a high level athlete at this point, because you really need to validate the reason why you are lifting heavy. Why are you using, and I love that Aaron and Anne, you know, Sarah, you said this too about, you know, that explosive movement. Sometimes I think people think of plyometrics as you have to jump. You don't have to jump. It's a fast twitch muscle. You can do plyometrics with a squat. And I love thinking of the eccentric, concentric movements. Mess around with the timing of it. Up fast, slow down. You know, slow up, fast down. That is going to really light up, you know, those synapses firing in your brain. You know, you're getting that fast twitch muscle, but you're also getting some strength at the same time. And, you know, I like people to validate why they're lifting weight. And a lot, you really don't need to lift heavy weights in order to maintain, and you don't have to do it every day. I mean, really, it's 2 to 3 times a week to maintain that muscle strength. And those are the things I think are really important, and you better have a reason. What does this relate to?
I'm a little scared of you now. You better have a reason. And Erin, you were nodding. You were getting very excited when
Yeah, and the whole idea of just moving a lot of weight to move a lot of weight and moving it slowly. If we train slowly, we become slow, right? And so yeah, moving weight is okay. I mean, working on strength is okay. And that I didn't come here to say that you should never work on strength and only work on power. That's certainly not why I came here. But I think a lot of times, a lot of programs do a disservice to their older adults when they really just focus on, we're going to work on strength, or we're only going to take 2-pound weights, and we're only going to use 2-pound weights the whole time that you're in here. So I just think what Christine and Ann brought up about that, how it transfers from the time they're in the fitness center to when they walk out of those doors. And that's really when they leave your fitness center is really when where the rubber meets the road, and where what you've been doing, how does that relate to what they're going to go do next? And that's where it becomes really important. And so for both Christine and Ann to bring up those things, I think it's just, to me, that's where the rubber meets the road, is when they leave your fitness center.
Yeah, and how they can perform in the real world. One quick thing, Ann, just before I call on you, Ann, if you guys that are on the webinar have questions, this is your webinar. So throw it in the chat. I'm always reading what's going on in the chat. So you have questions for these experts, please, you go down to the bottom of the screen. You'll see that green share button. Move your mouse to the left. You'll see the chat box. You guys all put in your name and stuff. Just throw it in there. We'd love to hear. Ann, please.
I just wanted to throw in a funny little thing, but one of my students came today with the t-shirt that she created for our small group. And it says, it shapes, of course, the logo, but it says, I wrote it down, I do so I can. And I thought that was the ultimate train to transfer to activities of daily life and desire. And desire, what they want to do again.
I do so I can. Yes,
Yeah,
Aaron.
cute.
Just to go off of that a little bit, those were the heartfelt moments for me in talking with clients who were in the fitness center. Was they could go to their son's house again for Thanksgiving because they could go up the steps because they had been working out and doing those kind of movements. And not to get sentimental or emotional, but that was those heartfelt moments, because then you felt like you were providing them life back by the exercises they were doing in the fitness center with you. So I love those moments.
It's so rewarding. And Ann, are you seeing a lot of results like this now? Because so many people were so disconnected during the pandemic. And I wonder, everybody's worried. Fitness centers are operating at 30%, 50%, 60%. But how has that affected your programming now?
Our programming is on fire right now. And I think our demographic wants to be with people. They want to be not only in webinars like this, but they want to be social again. They want to connect again. They love the idea and the value of small group training. So socialization has been huge. And I think it's affected our business in a very positive way. I think we're on fire. And I think the small group is here to stay for active agers.
Yeah, interestingly enough, we always do a questionnaire at the end of every mania. So we find out where people are interested. Active aging was #1 throughout the pandemic. Interestingly enough, it's down to #3 now. The first area is strength, second was function, and then third was active aging. So I found that pretty interesting. And I love your comment, Liz. Liz just wrote, getting down and up from the floor to play with their grandchildren. And Christine, you're nodding. Talk to me about some of these, I do so I can. I love that statement.
Well, this is we just rolled it out, the SCW fall prevention certification, and we focus a lot on, what happens when we're not strength training, when we're not, working on our flexibility. You can't get down on the floor and you can't get up. And all of a sudden, we turn into, oh my gosh, what happened to me? And can I reverse this? And the answer is yes. Yes, you can. And what we talk about is, what can we do as fitness professionals to educate just any demographic, especially active agers, on their flexibility, on their hips, because this matters. The strength matters in your hips. And what happens if you get down on the floor? And what happens if you fall? How do you get up? Do you have the tools? And do you have the strength in your lower body or upper body to get yourself up? Because now we have fear, and the fear of falling increases our fall risk because we're afraid. So
and what's interesting, Christine, is, and what I always think about is, when I fall, I'm going to catch myself with my right side. I catch myself with my right leg, and that's what I injure. And that's my stronger side. And if this happened to me, and I'm so used to getting up a certain way, using my right hand, using my right arm. Now what I do with my aging clients, and it's not just active agers. We're worried about those inactive agers. We want everyone coming to us. So I focus on, okay, if you're a righty, we're starting with your left. We're going to work on it, because you're going to brace yourself with your right hand, and that's the wrist you're going to break. That's the elbow you're going to strain. So you've got to get that left side strong. You've got to get that left leg strong, that left arm strong. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And somebody asked a question, I think, Aaron, you might be able to help us with this, is getting up and down from the floor. Okay, play. Somebody also asked about what, you mentioned some core plyometrics. Can you give some examples of that?
Yeah, so I'm a little tight. Otherwise, I would stand up and actually demonstrate the example. I'm in an office here where I'm a little bit tight.
Could.
One of them, though, and this is in the presentation that I have given at SCW Active Aging, as well as the ICAA. For example, a medicine ball twist, where they are either playing catch with a partner or throwing it up against a wall, for example. They get a little bit of, let's say I'm going to throw to my left side. I'm holding a medicine ball of some sort, or even a soft kickball or something to that extent, where I'm getting that movement to my right side, and then I explode out and throw the ball to my left, where I'm getting a little bit of a twisting motion. Also, too, coming back, if they have to catch it, they get that counter movement where they're getting that eccentric shortening cycle happening, and then they're throwing it back to their left. That said, also, there are aspects of upper body plyometrics that require a lot of core stabilization as well. So to think about it that way, whether we're doing, if we think about a traditional plyometric exercise, such as a plyometric push-up off the floor, you can do plyometric push-ups off the wall, off a chair, off a bench, to make it easier and more suitable for your active agers. As they come up, they have to brace their core. They have to brace their abdominals, midsection, low back, glutes, everything to stabilize themselves. A medicine ball throw, even back and forth like this, they have to stabilize that midsection. So core exercises and plyometrics are a little bit difficult. There are a couple, particularly that medicine ball twist, but keep in mind some of those upper body plyometric exercises also require a lot of stabilization.
Oh, I think that's fascinating. That's great stuff. That was from Pam. And we've got Karen, who says we do squashed up the bug stomps in all directions for power. So, and interesting. I love that, stomping, squashing the bug. Now here is, somebody asked, so more fast movements, question mark. What power movements do you recommend? She's new to teaching water aerobics to senior citizens. Can we do some power movements, Ann Gilbert, in the pool?
My head's going.
Yeah.
Do you know anything with syncopation, Sarah? Anything where you stop the flow of the water? Just think of a traditional front kick and you're pushing that water forward. Anytime you can stop the action of the water while creating some type of turbulence, or we call it eddy in the business, but short, aggressive 1, 2, 3s, or syncopation when we move the water. And don't forget to move the water from deck to deck, from right to left, so that the water actually smashes off of the deck, comes back at you with more force. So the more you can create force against your body and force and stopping the action of the water, I call it syncopation, like a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 type of movement. I use trying to stop the turbulation of the water. I think then you can get explosive movements in the water.
Oh, definitely. And the variety of equipment. you know, the aqua gloves, if they can put the aqua gloves on, that's going to increase. You're talking surface space. You can
Mhm.
also do lever length, lengthen
length,
the arm, and that's going to increase. It's going to increase the power that you have to exert to actually move the arm through. This is going to be easier in the water. This is going to be much harder. And it's not like your hand got bigger or the water got heavier. It's just the speed of movement. So you have lever length, you have surface space. So I can slice through and that's easier. But if I give more hand action, that's
Great
going to
drag.
make it hard. Yeah. And the
Create
speed.
the
would-
drag. Mhm.
And Christine, what type of strength and power moves may help us in those activities of daily living? I think to some extent, I like your focus on, you know, just walk, just move. And it's not so much also just, you know, getting better, it's just getting there. So I know you see that with fall prevention. What type of exercises would you recommend to help prevent the falls?
A lot of hip flexor work is what we do. First off, Anne mentioned it before about your feet. Yes, you do need to have some dorsiflexion. You do need to make sure that full foot is on the floor and you have the ability to move that ankle mobility to really, you know, balance yourself out and fix your, you know, fix your posture. But hip, we work a lot on a powerful hip could just be standing up, feet shoulder width or a little farther apart, lifting up that leg nice and quick and putting it down slowly. Working on, you know, lifting it up slow and putting it down quickly, you know, in all different directions, using those, you know, using the hip muscles, opening, working on the flexibility, bringing the legs together. Any of those are really important. And especially you can do that with anything, with your arms. I love the syncopation as well. And just really working on the speed, again, taking those legs wider, you know, taking them more narrow. And again, anything that you do, like I said before, I just really want to reiterate that there's got to be a reason. I mean, how often do we pick our foot up or put it down quick because we lost our balance? And that, like Aaron was saying before, that is a lot of core work as well. I think if you're going to engage those hip flexors, you're going to engage that core. Now you're going to start to engage that lumbar spine as well. So I really think that anything that we're talking about is, honestly, do not overthink some of these exercises. Do not think we need, you know, a million different bells and whistles. Just go back to, like Sarah, you said, the second most interesting thing people want is function. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I need strength to do something. I want to make it functional in my life. And now I'm getting older. I mean, I see that as a perfect domino of topics.
Yeah, and I did, Aaron, when I was thinking about the med ball, you were talking rotating. Today, this is very exciting. My neighbor, she's just adorable. I love her. She's got a 6-year-old daughter. She's got a 6-month-old baby. So she had to go, and the 6-year-old is entering 1st grade. So they meet with the teachers. So she had to meet with the teachers. She's like, I have no babysitter. Sarah, she's my next door neighbor. So she said, Sarah, please, would you watch Kai, which is her son? Would you watch him for a half an hour? And I'm like, oh my God, get my hands on that child. I'm like, I can just smell that baby now. So she handed me Kai, and I had to rotate and I had to put him in the crib. And I was thinking in the back of my head, oh my gosh, I did this with a double tube when I was reaching, and I was working on my core and my back and my posture. And I'm talking about my rotator cuff and my this and my that. But like you mentioned, Christine, I totally forget that this is a real life movement. I'm pulling wet laundry out of my washing machine, and I'm lifting it up, and my son's talking to me, so I have to turn around. So we think about the functional movements, and I think we can utilize this in cueing as well. Because, you know, people are like, well, I want to use these light weights because I don't want to work heavy. You know, that Kai weighs almost 20 pounds. He's a monster. Okay, he's a monster. And women give birth and it's a 6-pound baby. And then like what, 2 months later, it's suddenly 15 pounds. Well, you got to be able to lift and move it. So you don't want to work with just, there's nothing wrong with working with light weights. I mean, and we do it with the SEAT program because then it gives them a foundation. And then when they're in the classroom, they can work with something heavier. It gives them something to feel comfortable with. But it's important for us to think about what are they really going to be lifting. And we got another comment from someone said, my mom stopped walking because she was afraid of falling and didn't have upper body strength to get herself up. It was very sad. And she sees a lot of seniors in these situations because they don't want to exercise, because they're afraid of it. There's a wonderful program. It's called Jetty. I'm going to ask Carter if he wouldn't mind throwing their website in. They have these walking sticks, and I do a lot of hiking, and I'm getting a little bit nervous because I'm keeping up with my, my 30-year-old cousin and her, oh my gosh, no, she's 40 and the daughter was 12, and I'm trying to keep up with this hike with them. So I used the walking sticks and kept going with that. But we don't want people to slow down because of the fear. Psychologically, and I'm going to go, how do we deal with this? Go ahead, please.
Christine had her hand up too, so I apologize, Christine, but you know what, we were talking a little bit earlier about selectorized equipment. There's a little bit of an intimidation factor when people walk into the club and see rows and rows of equipment, but getting them through the door, I think, is really important way for us to start with the new year coming, finding new ways to attract people to the doorstep of your facility or your club or your studio. But I don't think it's necessarily bad to use selectorized equipment for a while. I think it helps to condition the connective tissue at the joint. It helps to increase awareness of where the action happens. And active agers love to be motivated with education. But if you stay on this selectorized equipment, I always find the strong side's going to take over for the weak. So I love the jump to individual biomechanics from right to left as being the first progression, and then that speed, power, balance, and reactionary time. But don't be afraid to at least introduce students to the selectorized equipment. A lot of people feel comfortable there because they're supported by a bench, and you can also use that time to educate them. But it really increases the connective tissue readiness. I don't know if that's the right word. It gets my connective tissue ready to go on individual biomechanics.
Christine?
So I'm going to throw this out here to all of us. We all know someone at this point in our lives, it could be ourselves or clients or loved ones, that are afraid of falling and, may even do some strength work or we want to motivate them to work. There's ways, and again, I teach this in the SCW fall prevention program, of ways to get up if you fall. And as a fitness professional, we need to assure our members that, listen, there are techniques that we can help you learn. One of them is called the tipping point technique. And I'm not going to show this to you right now, but there's a way that, if you are lacking strength in your arm or flexibility through your hip flexor to get up, that there's ways that you can actually safely, as long as you're not, thoroughly injured, get up and be okay. So sometimes it just takes, that little extra step of, let me just show you this technique just in case. And it might give them a little extra confidence to say, oh, okay. And now you're working on strength so that, wow, if you do fall, you've got this in the background, but now we're going to also work on your strength. So hopefully you won't need to use these techniques.
Erin, you're kind of nodding there. And I know you worked with so many clients.
Yeah, and I think, to Christine's point, it was a question that I got a lot, was how do I get up? What happens if I do fall? How do I get up? And a lot of it came back to, as Christine mentioned, there's techniques that they can use. I've worked with physical therapists who have given me some additional techniques that they can use as well. But a lot of it came down to, they were in the fitness center, exercising on a regular basis, strengthening their muscles, becoming more flexible, things like that. And that helped them get up if they did fall. They felt like I would hear stories about they would come in the fitness center and say, you know what, I fell yesterday, but I was able to get up because I feel like I am stronger, or I feel like I could overcoming that joint angle to get up from the floor takes a fair amount of strength to do that. And so they were able to do that because they were physically active. And they were able to do that because they lived a physically active lifestyle, all aspects, cardiovascular, strength, flexibility. And so that it is a crucial aspect for aging older adults to
And
be
I
able
think
to do.
that's good also because it incentivizes them. And anything we can do, you know, any little cookie, any little biscuit we can do that's going to incentivize us to keep going. I can't tell you how often that I heard with my water exercise people, they would say, I went in and I injured, you know, I had to get knee surgery and I am recovering quicker than anyone. My doctor is just shocked. And that's very encouraging, and making sure, I don't know how many club owners are on or how many personal trainers are on this call, but making sure to publicize that and making sure that individuals understand that, getting little videos from our clients saying, because I do these exercises, I was able to grab my grandchild before he ran in the street. I was able to babysit for a full weekend with 3 grandchildren, and I'm barely alive right now, but I made it through, you know, or I just recovering from surgery, and thank you, you know, Christine Conti, for the training you did for me. They love that. And I'm getting comments about the hiking and the Nordic sticks and the urban polling. And someone even said they use it just to shoo away the snakes. It's very interesting. And Mary stated, if you cue as if they're doing ADLs, which is activities of daily living, they will not only relate, but some of your body alignment cues will become healthy habits. And that's really what we want to look at. We do want to look at posture. Are there particular exercises? I know, Ann, you talked about pulling rather than always pushing that rounds us over. But are there other exercises? And Aaron, I'm gonna come to you. Are there particular exercises that you do? We were talking about how do we set assessments and then document their improvement for motivational purposes. Are there assessment exercises that you do with them, or specific muscle strengthening exercises that you do?
Yeah, when it comes to posture, you know, Ann talked about this a little bit with the pulling, but really anything with the posterior chain, anything from, if you were to cut yourself in half front to back, anything on the posterior side is so vital for quality posture and maintaining that posture. So, you know, we've talked about this already in the 38 minutes that we've been on, but we live in a world out here, right? Even our active agers are on their computers or on their iPads, and they are living in a world here. And so to be able to pull them back and to be able to work a lot on that posterior chain, and that goes all the way from the heels up to the shoulders, essentially, and even into the neck, of being able to pull back and use, and they need to use their glute muscles, they need to use their hamstrings to bring everything back upright again. So anything posterior chain, I guess, from a postural standpoint.
Very key. I always tell my people, because I feel like they're all forward head in the kyphosis. I'm like, when you're in the car, push your head. Of course, you want the turkey neck, but push your head into the headrest, and that'll give you a little extra resistance. So it's not just a turkey neck, you're actually getting some resistance there, which is important. God forbid they ever get into a car accident, which unfortunately with my in-laws used to happen. You know, they shouldn't have been driving, should have happened a little bit too frequently. Aaron, what type of assessments do you do? Because we do want to categorize and document their change, because it's so motivating.
Yeah, and I mean, there are, we could have a whole webinar on assessments and different assessments. And we chatted about this a little bit before, but if I were to pick one, it would be a timed up and go. So there's versions of it or variations, 8 foot timed up and go, 10 foot timed up and go. You can have them walk to a tape line. You can have them walk around a cone, but essentially they stand up from the chair, they walk around the cone, and they sit down in the chair again, and you time how long that takes them. I love that test because it involves lower body strength. They have to stand up from the chair. They have to be able to balance themselves as they stand up. And then obviously gait or mobility to be able to walk around the cone. There's some agility at the end to turn around the cone, coming back and controlling themselves while they sit down. I've seen a lot of people who come back and they flop into the chair as they're kind of sitting down and going towards the floor at the same time. So they kind of flop into the chair. We want them to come around and control themselves as they're able to sit down and use those eccentric contractions to be able to come back down to the chair. So that would be my one go-to. I'm sure Christine and Ann have a whole bunch of other ones, but that would, if I had to pick one, it would be a timed up and go.
Yes, Ann?
I just want to add that that particular test can be done in a large group also. So if you're looking for how to assess a large group, 12 to 25 people, the sit and go or stand and go is a great little test to use in a warm-up. So you can assess a large group also.
And I had also asked you earlier, Ann, how frequently do you do these assessments?
I remind everybody that they'll be due for their assessment in 4 weeks. I remind them that, but there are a lot of people in my active aging group that love to be assessed before that. They want to see the results in strength. So if they, I often will assess on a weekly basis.
Interesting. And Christine?
As often as possible is how I like to assess. I know I do informal assessments at the very beginning of every session if you're working one-on-one with someone. And obviously I like to teach my clients to assess themselves if we're in a larger group, because it is hard to give that individual attention to everybody. So by having I like to go through from one, I love that sit. I love the sit and go. I personally love the sit to stand because you hit a timer for about 30 seconds. How many did you get in today? And is it quality? It's not just I'm throwing myself on the seat. I want you to lower yourself and sit. And are you able to do that? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? What's your balance like? We're looking forward to, did you eat? What medications are you on? I mean, there's so many things that play into this that sometimes when you do it, once every 4 weeks or whatnot, maybe that was just an off day. So sometimes I think there gray areas are in here as well. But I did want to add that some assessments, and I know that we can go back to our regular assessments for, whatever normal clients may mean, but there is something on the CDC called STEADI, STEADI, and also something called the Berg Balance Scale. And if you just go ahead and Google these, they give you, there's a 14-step assessment. Now, I know that some of it has to do with fall prevention, but these are assessments that you can do, and you can pick and choose different ones. I know, Aaron, the get and go is on there, the sit to stand is on there, and different strength with one leg weight bearing exercises. These are things that when their strength increases, they're going to be better at each of these as well. So just something else that you may want to just take a look at. Great resource.
That's great. And thank you, Carter. Carter put the link to the study from CDC, the Center for Disease Control, for the STEADI assessment. So that's wonderful for all of us to have. Thank you so much. And I think you always think of, I'm going to do assessments like once a quarter, summer, spring, winter, fall, but because we have this reduction in musculature as we age, we also atrophy much more quickly. Like not exercising for a week is almost going to have a much stronger impact on the body to an 80-year-old as compared to a 20-year-old. So having it, like Christine said, once a week, Ann said once a month, Aaron's like whenever you can, it's great. And I saw, Aaron, I saw you nodding when Christine said, get them to be able to do the assessments themselves. I think that also is really key. Now, I'm going to take the liberty of real quickly showing you a wonderful conference that we have coming up. This is on Saturday, December 10th, which is coming up in about 3 weeks here. We have 30 sessions, 15 trainers, 15 CECs, and you can have 30 days of recording. So I highly recommend to you guys, check out the Personal Trainer Apex Convention. It's a virtual convention. It's not live. It's completely live stream. And it's only $99 for the conference. And there are a ton of sessions that are being offered. So be sure to go in and check it out. We'll make sure you get the website, but you can view the schedule. You can see all the classes that are going on. And what's so nice is every single thing is being recorded. And we've got wonderful presenters that are at the conference. So we would love for you guys to check out the conference. It's just one day. It's on a Saturday, but the whole thing's going to be recorded. And we would just love to see you there. Carter, thank you for putting it in the chat box. And don't forget about our Active Aging virtual convention that we will be having in March. And I would love to have Christine, Ann, and Aaron, of course, on featured in the conference. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Carter, Aaron, Ann, and Christine. You guys are just a dream. So thank you, and everybody have a good night. Take care.